PR's Top Pros Talk, the year of the new pivot, featuring Lori Jung, co-founder of Hudson West PR and Marketing. And here's your host, Doug Simon.
Lori, you've talked about 2023 as being a year of the new pivot. What do you mean by the new pivot?
We all were prepared and were forced to pivot during the pandemic. I think 2023 being the year of the new pivot is being prepared for what's to come, whether that's a bleak sales forecast or a project ending. I think it's being prepared with your PR firm.
Yeah, and one of the key things in that with the economic uncertainty ahead is really partnering with your agency and agencies and brands working together to drive sales growth. How do you go about doing that?
Working with your agency, your publicist, or even finding one, and really sharing those KPIs, sharing what you need in a campaign, and sharing your, again, forecast to kind of examine it, strategically prepare for it, and come up with a solution-based PR solution to what your next dilemma could be.
So how do you effectively communicate with clients? What are some tips?
We only work, as you know, on reputation-based referrals. So we believe in our clients, we're passionate about them. Often we work with other sister agencies. If someone comes to us and it's not the right fit, not quite in our wheelhouse, we have agencies across the country that we will refer those clients to. And in return, they come back to us. We kind of build this communication of trust from the get-go with our clients, and we hope that other agencies do the same. It's a little bit different than things were 20 years ago, where everybody was cutthroat trying to get the same people. But we love it, and we're really happy with our relationships. Not only referring potentials to other agencies, but finding the right fit and the clients we can be the best cheerleaders for.
Yeah, I know you've told me about an example where a client really needed to push one particular project because some of the logistics challenges that were going on during COVID. Sometimes you don't necessarily get all the information from the client. You touched upon trust. Maybe before you give that example, can you share just some of the ways that you build trust? Obviously, you look for it, but how do you get the clients to trust you, and what's the impact of that on results?
At our firm, we have weekly calls with our clients. We also have all of our clients' text messages, text numbers. They're on speed dial all the time. But I think most importantly, we have those quarterly meetings where we re-examine our successes, our failures. We address those KPIs. We talk about, what is the next step? You mentioned the pending recession. What is the problem, and how can we come up with a solution-based tactic using PR to kind of get, things going in the other direction. And I think just, again, by speaking to them regularly, understanding their needs, a lot of times we are putting together sales presentations for trade shows, or even metrics for board meetings, kind of establishing what does your client really need, and being that partner and that cheerleader versus a vendor.
Is there a pattern to how you can go about doing that? And for someone else, not everyone has such a great story that's just super obvious from a client perspective or that matches their needs. So how do you come up with sort of a pattern approach to trying to develop good stories that benefit clients?
As every good publicist or PR person knows, you need to understand who you're pitching. Once you understand who you're pitching and you know them well, you could explain the story, and fingers crossed that coverage happens. I think one of the most important things, and again, potentially a pivot for 2023, is being grateful and thankful for that coverage. And clients can repurpose that coverage across social media, on LinkedIn, in their newsletter. And we've often found that by doing that and getting more eyeballs to the coverage and to the story, and thanking the reporter or the producer, more interview requests and more media opportunities flow from that. So it's a great way to kind of give your story legs and tell it again and again, and get more opportunities and good PR coverage out there.
Yeah, that's a really smart insight, because a lot of the journalists out there are being sort of graded on, if you will, on how much reach their stories are getting. So if you can help them be successful, they're going to like you more. That's just the nature of the business. Also, if you can give them stories that have the potential for increased reach. What are some of the other approaches that you're taking or that you'd suggest to trying to develop a story with a client? Have you ever run into where a client is sort of hesitant to shift from what they've been doing? And since 2023 is the year of the pivot, they've got to do that. How do you get them to move from where they are if it's just not going to resonate?
I think a lot of it has to do with, again, knowing who that journalist or that producer or that reporter is and packaging up the story in the exact format that that person wants to hear it. I can think of numerous, producers, and I can think of numerous journalists who want things in a series of bullet points. And if you provide that for them, they are happy. So it's kind of shifting your story into the format that they need first.
Yeah, that brings me back to a memory when I was starting my career. One of my colleagues was really great at pitching the Today Show. Basically, she would produce the story for the producer. She'd say, I have this client, like, who else would you want to be part of that story? And she would track them down, find them. They weren't clients to that agency, but she would just package them together. So there'd be 3 or 4 elements in the package that the Today Show was doing. Any final thoughts that you want to leave the audience with?
Again, I think there's 2 audiences, right? It's potential clients. So if you're looking for, to tell your story, if you have a situation coming up that needs PR, reach out there, talk to someone, get a referral, get a, look at an agency or publicist who has a similar track record. Also, I think the other audience would be the other PR agencies. And I think that tip of advice and that pivot for 2023 is, again, understand what's in your wheelhouse and your strengths. Share maybe someone comes to you and is an author or a consumer product or something that you just haven't worked with. Maybe you work specifically with entrepreneurs, but get to know other publicists and other agencies so you can, again, leverage their expertise and vice versa. Share contacts, things like that. So I encourage, again, I think the pivot of 2023 for agencies is publicists and PR playing nice with publicists and PR.
My producer is insisting I ask Lori what she sort of learned in her experience with us at DS Simon for 7 years at the start of her career. How has that influenced what she's doing now as head of her own agency?
Doug was my very first boss. I was straight out of college with a PR degree. And Doug taught me everything I knew about PR. At that time, we were doing lots of video news releases, satellite media tours. He really showed me kind of the world of PR and all of the working gears and parts behind PR. He was, unbeknownst to my knowledge, looking for a mentee when I was also looking for a mentor. But really shadowing Doug for those 7 years was a great introduction of the world of PR, continued my passion. He was obviously a CEO and a founder. And then after working for probably a decade more in PR, various firms, I decided that I needed to follow in his footsteps and open my own.
You probably figured that if you could survive working with me, you could probably work for other entrepreneurs that might be easier to deal with, but hopefully not as much fun.
Well, Doug was an absolute pleasure and definitely taught me everything that I knew. But, on the topic of entrepreneurs, we have a lot of entrepreneur clients. And so, the struggles of doing that from the ground up, and you could relate to them. And again, just becoming their biggest cheerleader as well. It's all about establishing that trust.
And that's a nice way to end the segment. Thanks so much for joining us.